opening statement.
Can you explain the trade that you made with the Eagles in terms of how it was generated and how the value is? I mean, did you guys work out the same trade chart? There were so many
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we look at them, they look at them, and we just come to, an agreement. Look, for us, it's an opportunity to get, I think, another good player a year ahead of time for a value that we like. That's, in a nutshell, what it was.
Mickey, who initiated that trade? Who made the first call?
Yeah, I think that was Howie. He was looking to, he had 3 first-round picks, and he was looking to shift one to next year.
And for you guys shifting one to this year, is that just kind of, you like where your roster's at? You got some guys you like to build around now as opposed to maybe?
Again, I think it's an opportunity to get, a really good player a year before we would get it more narrowly, and I liked the value of what we gave up versus what we got.
Was that the
any
main?
of that tied to how little you've spent in free agency? The
No,
price is also good for.
No, not really.
Was that the main goal? To get talent
Yes.
a year?
Yeah, I think that's always the main goal for us, right?
But
And I'm not being facetious. I'm saying yes, you're right. We're trying to, acquire as many good players as we can, and this is another opportunity. You have free agency, you have trades, and you have the draft, and so this is.
but specifically a year ahead.
Yeah, because we're taking next year's first and converting it to this year's first.
Would you say you had, when he called and you decided to make the deal, you had an idea of what you wanted to do with that, or was it just about collecting assets?
That was a combination of that. Yeah, a combination of the two.
Mickey, did any of it have to do with how your board stacked up? Did you see a lot of value in the top 20 in this year in particular?
Yes.
More than you're more.
I don't know
top
about
20
more or
guys
less. I just, look, there's a group of players that we like that we think are going to be available.
As far as I know, it seems like the quarterback class is all over the board with how people have graded and ranked them. Just maybe overall, how do you all feel about the group?
Yeah, that's not an area I want to get into.
Maybe when you're looking into making a trade like that, are you guys confident that things are going to kind of fall the way you want? Do you feel like there's a scenario or two that are very likely going to play out before you make that deal?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's not foolproof though. But yeah, I mean, we wouldn't make a deal if we didn't think we were going to end up, with a good player in that spot. So, but it's not, it's never foolproof.
So you guys earmark a handful of guys kind of in this, we'll get
I'm sorry, say that again.
like, do you earmark like a handful of guys and you're like, okay, one of these 3 or 4 or whatever type of.
Mickey, how has the process gone without Sean? I mean, obviously Dennis was here and a lot of the staff's here, but
Quieter. I'm making a joke at his expense.
Which is okay.
It's been pretty similar, right? Pretty similar. Because look, the process isn't just, the head coach, the GM, and the assistant general manager. It's everyone. It's all of our coaches. It's all of our scouts. There's a lot of people involved, and obviously the head coach is one of them and important. And Sean has a strong voice, but Dennis does as well.
Mickey, from the time you said the Eagles had 3 and wanted to move one to next year, from the time they initially called you, how much lag time was there where you sort of sat down and looked at the possibility and figured it out? Was it a quick, easy decision, or was it something you sat on for a while?
It wasn't long, but it wasn't short. It was, probably 4 or 5 days total, 3 or 4 days. And I don't remember exactly, but we had a lot of discussion about it, a lot of review, and we were deep into the evaluation process already, so it wasn't like we had to go evaluate the draft in order to make that decision, but it was relatively short, I think.
I'm sorry, can you say what maybe the factors were that led you to go yes instead of no?
I think I've already said it. It's an opportunity to get a talented player in a program a year earlier than what we would ordinarily, and It's simple as that.
Mickey, what does that say about where you think this team is now? Does that add into the fact that you guys expect to make a playoff run this? I mean, is that something that factors into wanting the pick a year early?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit, but not. I mean, look, I think in any circumstance we'd be evaluating that kind of opportunity and deciding whether or not it made sense for us.
What are some of the challenges in picking so close together in the first round? I know you did it in 2011 with Cam and Mark. I think it was 24-28.
I don't know if there's a lot of challenges other than, if there's a trade scenario that comes up, then you're talking about, well, which pick and what's the value, what's the difference in value if we traded, the earlier one versus the later one. And it's a little more compressed in terms of time, but I don't think there's anything real significant about who you're picking or for which position, because look, that's already done. Before we get to draft day, we can't. We have them in order. We know the order that we want them in, and you're just waiting to see what happens.
Mickey, how would you say the strengths of this draft line up with the areas y'all are most interested in addressing?
Well, how can I answer that without giving you any information?
That's your specialty.
That's my specialty. I think I don't think I'm going to answer that. That's what I think.
Can you do it in general without identifying those positions?
Well, look, I think at the end of the day, we're gonna get players at positions that we like. Is that good enough?
Maybe last year, I know you said, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, I think you said there was like a clear 1 to 20 and then 20 to 50, depending on what team you went to. There was a lot of players probably in that same grouping. Do you feel it breaks down that way this year, or do you feel that it's a lot more, closer in the grades on the players?
I think it's pretty similar. Yeah, I think it's pretty similar.
You guys brought in at least a couple of veterans, Tyrann Mathieu and Jarvis Landry, for visits at positions where there could be holes in the starting lineup, but haven't filled those holes. Is that different than any other years past where you tried to fill every sort of starting lineup position before the draft, or?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit different, and I think that's really just reflective of where our cap position is in. So I'd say, yeah, it is a little bit different. Typically, we're going to have our 20 or 30 off-season things that we want to do, and we're going to have almost all of them done prior to the draft, and I would say they're not all done currently.
So are there maybe more, if you still do must, wants, and needs, are there
Yeah.
maybe more vacancies on
Yeah,
that?
not many more, but there's 1 or 2.
So many of the quarterbacks over the last 7 years who were drafted high are no longer with their original team. When you're evaluating that position, do you draw any conclusions about why that might be? Does that influence how you think about a certain player, about where you might draft them?
Look, I think what it says is that it's a tough position to evaluate, and there's a lot of variables involved, and so I think it does affect you a little bit because, look, we all want, particularly a first round pick or a second round pick, we want them to be contributors to the football team, and so you're looking at, hey, what's the floor of a particular player and what's the ceiling, and so there's risk reward. Certainly, it affects how you think about it.
So with that in mind, do you think more time, no matter what draft it is, has to be spent studying that position?
I think that's reflective on how, what your desire is to get the particular position. I think it's part of it. But we spend a lot of time on the quarterback position and every position every year. So I think that, our group's pretty thorough in our evaluation. But I would say that depending upon your need, you do spend a little more time in those positions.
You get this stage of the game, is it kind of in the barn, or you still as a
Yeah.
staff have like work to do?
We're still up there tinkering. Yeah. But I think it's pretty much, it was pretty much set. Now it's just a little tinker here or there.
How deep do you go into hypotheticals of what everybody else is doing
Yeah.
and then the permutations? How
Yeah.
many layers do you
We're
do?
talking about that, it's a little bit of a exasperating because all of a sudden you're talking about these different things and mock drafts that you're doing, and then you hear some wild rumor and like, what? Guess we better talk about that. So, yeah, there's some.
Is the door still open for free agency after the draft, or are you hoping to fill everything over the next couple of days?
Yeah, I think we're gonna find out. Yeah, here's the thing: is when we get done with the draft, we're still only gonna have 70. I forget what the number is exactly. We're gonna have roster spots available. So yeah, there's still work to be done after the draft.
And was anything about the trade just about maybe how free agency played out and some of the soaring prices? And I know you guys want to get the cap in order. Was that maybe about getting cost control down?
Yeah, I think that's always a factor. It's always a factor, but yeah, having young players on your roster that are contributors at rookie deals, I mean that helps your cap. And so yeah, it's a little bit of a variable, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was the overriding reason that we made the trade.
As busy as you'll be tomorrow night, will you be able to keep an eye on the Pelicans?
Yeah, we will. We'll have that in the corner, absolutely.
You just talk about that dynamic.
Just excited for them and David and Willie Green and Trajan and just to see a young group like that come together and just be so gritty and tough and the way they play is it's really fun to watch as a fan. And then when you know the people involved and you know how hard they're working and then the response to the team that the city's had has been fabulous. Look, people don't even ask me about the draft; they ask me about the Pelicans, and I think that's pretty cool. Except you guys, you're asking me about the draft.
And Nick, do you remember anything about that 2011 draft when the Hornets were playing that same night? Do you remember much about that?
I probably should, but I don't. That was the same night.
Yeah. They played
Yeah, I don't remember.
Mickey, how do you come up with the value for trading a 2023 pick, trading a 2024 pick? There's so many different charts that some people say, "Oh my gosh, the Eagles."
Well, the charts don't
Yeah.
value future picks,
Right.
And so you really I have at my fingertips all the trades that are involved with the draft over the last 14 years, and so you look at that, you look at how people value it. Part of that, the mystery of it is you don't know where you're picking in the future. Look, if we have a successful season and are picking late in the draft, that favors us, and if we don't and we're picking early in the draft, then it's a pretty good deal for Philadelphia, and so that's part of the equation. But the bigger piece is how does the player perform that we select? Because for example, if you traded your whole draft away and you got Tom Brady, everybody would say that's a great draft. Now they wouldn't say that it was a great trade before that happened, but after the fact they'd say, look at that. So ultimately it comes down to who you select and how well that player performs.
And obviously you're not going to say whether you plan to package those two picks and make that move up, but does the flexibility that gives you, was that a factor at all in wanting to pick?
A little bit, yeah.
How much exploration do you guys do before the draft, just about what it might cost to go up, or even if you want to go back?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of that, both forward and backward.
And you
You
identify,
guys know how many times I've traded backward.
and I'm assuming you identify spots where teams might be willing to,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think every year, look, every GM is doing this, is that you're looking at how many spots you can go up for, a price that you can, feel comfortable with, and then how many will you go back and feel comfortable about where you're picking and what you're gaining. I mean, that's what we do. And so there's a lot of discussion about that. Obviously, there's lots of teams that say, we're not really interested in moving.
What do you think you guys really haven't traded? Is that traded back? Is that a philosophy or is it just?
No, I don't. It's not really a philosophy. No, it's just the circumstances of where we've been.
You moved on from a really good player, a really great player at left tackle.
Yeah.
The fact that you had Hurst in the building, how much did that, did that figure into it at all?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit, yes. Listen, Traum is a fantastic player, still is. He was fantastic for us, both on the field and off the field, and I'm happy that he got a nice contract. I am. I'm disappointed that we couldn't figure out a way to do it. But these are the tough choices that you have to make sometimes.
Mickey, does the potential of getting compensated for Sean Payton play into your decision to trade away future assets?
No, not really. No. Now I'm pretty confident that if Sean was still our head coach, he'd have been on board and excited to do this, just like I am.
Do you ever find the value of like moving up, the cost of it changes, and what do you think some of the factors are that?
Yeah, I think
contribute to
it's all supply and demand, right? It's all supply and demand. If there's a lot of teams that want to move back, the cost goes down. If there's a lot of teams that want to move up, the cost goes up. It kind of depends upon the supply and demand, and then if you've got somebody specifically targeted, so it's a little bit unique that way.
Have your internal mock drafts been harder to build this year than
Um,
ever you can remember, especially with the quarterback?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think there's some wild cards. There always are wild cards though, and I think for the most part when we do these mock drafts, we're looking more at worst case scenario for us than we are about. For us it's more about what's the worst case scenario? Doomsday, as Jeff calls it now and then.
Are 16 and 19 still pretty good in
Yeah.
doomsday scenarios? Like, is the
Yes.
draft deep enough for that
Yes.
future?
Does this year's draft kind of feel like, the last 2 years has been just kind of wild with the pandemic 2020 and then last year even a little bit more? Do you feel more prepared, kind of better on the ground with what you've been before?
Yes, I do feel like the evaluations and the process has been more thorough than it was a little uneasy, I think, the last 2 years. More uneasy than it usually is, I should say. But,
Is there a bigger pool of draftable prospects this year than years past? And if so, how does that kind of impact your decision?
I haven't counted. I think there is, but we really haven't sat down and counted, the numbers. Last year there was fewer, and I think that at the end of the day impacted the end of the draft and the college free agent process more than the upper rounds of the draft. And so my suspicion is that it'll do the opposite this year.
Do you all still feel like you need to add some offensive explosiveness regardless of position, whether that's through the draft or free agency?
Yeah, we always feel that way. Yeah. But I think we always feel that way. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well done.
So who's going to Pelicans here tomorrow night? Who's coming to that?
There's times where I feel like I could be one game, two places.
There you go. Okay. Thank you all.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.